Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Voice of College Football. I am your host tonight, Matthew Miller. Can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. And we have a jam-packed weekend of college football, 4 ranked versus ranked matchups. What game are you most excited for out of those 4? Let me know in the comments. Also, I thought this was a good place to start because I think this confuses a lot of people, and I thought it was a really, really good comment. Charles Todd Sullivan, President 2024, says, Billy Napier still has not been fired. Yeah, that surprises me, guys. You know, after what has happened the last couple of weeks, I thought he would be gone. That is not the case. So is he going to be fired? At this point, I don't know. Like, which is surprising to say that because you're 1-3 as a Texas fan. Obviously, you can see, I think they're going to lose that football game. That would put you at 1-4, and then you're going to start one of the most gruesome stretches in the history of the sport with that schedule. So I think Billy Napier is as good as gone. The next bye week is right before Florida, so that's interesting to me. Do they fire him the week of their biggest game of the season, or what most fans think of as their biggest game of the season? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting, but I think there is a real chance. I don't know. Is it possible that they just say, hey, because of the buyout, we're just going to put it all into NIL instead? We've seen that recently, and that is a way to go. Our team's going to decide, instead of buying coaches out, we're just going to put it towards, put, 80% of that money towards the NIL. That's very, very interesting. Donovan, hey, nice. I do not see many of you guys here. If you are not subscribed to the Texas Voice of College Football channel, please go over there and subscribe there. I really appreciate you guys being here. These OU fans, Auburn fans are definitely butthurt, but I've never seen a fan base so incredibly butthurt after a win. Yeah, it is pretty funny the way they're reacting to it, obviously with that trick play, cheating play, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty interesting. And then the Napier thing, which I hope he comes back. I want to play Oklahoma at full strength. I'm never the type of guy that wants to play a team down, even though I think that obviously would help Texas because I do not think Michael Hawkins is a very good quarterback. So I do think obviously going down from a John Napier, who obviously a really good quarterback and is probably in the top 5 in Heisman right now, to a Michael Hawkins that struggled to put up 6 points last year. I obviously wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing, but I'd rather play John Napier, and I think we'd beat him anyways. I really believe that. I've said that. We dropped a video going through Texas SEC schedule today, and I am confident that we're going to beat Oklahoma. Keith Rebar says, fire Fickle. That is another one that's interesting. I do think he gets fired at the end of the year. Then again, they just signed him to a contract extension, last year, I believe? I think it was last year they signed Luke Fickle to a contract extension. So I don't know. There's a couple of these programs I really don't know what they're doing, what their thinking is in terms of long term. And that's one of them. I thought Luke Fickle was going to work out there, but I thought he was going to work out because I thought he was going to buy into what Wisconsin has and always has been, which is a really good offensive line, pretty good running backs, pretty good quarterback, and you just pound the football away, have a guy like Alex Hornibrook that's somewhat competent at the quarterback position. And they have not done that. They've tried to go to the opposite way. Now, do I respect the decision? Yes, because that way you're not winning a national championship playing that style of football. Michigan's the only one, and I don't think you're getting a low 5-star guy to go to Wisconsin like J.J. McCarthy, and that's a big part of the reason why they won the national championship. So I respect Luke Fickle for shooting for the sky there, trying to win a national championship, but he's just not that guy. He's just not. It sucks to say that because he seems like a really good guy. I have nothing bad to say about him, but I just don't see him doing anything big at Wisconsin. I know it's cool to hate on Arch in Texas right now, but I think we're going to do well this year. 9-3, absolute worst. I agree with that because if you look at the schedule, like Florida, DJ Lagway, nowhere near where I thought they were going to be offensively. Oklahoma, obviously John Napier being hurt. If he doesn't come back for that game gets a lot easier. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think realistically the hardest game left on our schedule is either Georgia or Vanderbilt, which is pretty crazy to say now, but it's the truth. I think Texas A&M is up there as well, but I think it might be those two games. Why are they firing coaches so early in the season? Do they start contacting other replacement coaches? Yes, Justin, that is exactly what happens. Networking behind the scenes. Honestly, there are certain ways to do this. I know when Texas did it with Steve Sarkisian, he was hired, I believe, 24 hours after Tom Herman was fired. That process did not happen 24 hours after Tom Herman was fired. They kept Tom Herman, and then once they knew Steve Sarkisian was going to be the next head coach, they fired Tom Herman. Florida could be doing something similar. They could be contacting someone like a Lane Kiffin, like an Alex Golix behind the scenes, and that guy could agree to it, and then that's when you see Billy Napier get fired. Now, that announcement probably won't come till the end of the year, but that's how really good athletic directors handle their business. Chris Del Conte at Texas has done that everywhere he's been. If you look at all their coaches, baseball, we saw it with Jim Schlossnagle coming over from Texas A&M. He did not fire David Pierce until he knew he was going to get that commitment from Jim Schlossnagle coming over from Texas A&M. So really good athletic directors get their guys first and then fire their head coaches. So yes, the good ones do. They should at least. Obviously, there's not as many good athletic directors as people probably think there are. I think there's probably only, 25% of all athletic directors are competent at what they do. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's the case with a lot of things now. I don't think there's very many competent people in every field. That's a whole nother rant for a whole different day. But I think that is how you should handle business. If you're not handling business that way, I tend not to take you very seriously. But it's going to be interesting to see like all these coaching jobs that open up and then who they're filled by, because there is no big name candidate. I think usually you have about one guy that you look at and, oh, that's the big name this cycle. I don't think that guy exists this cycle. If you want to say Lane Kiffin, fine. I actually don't believe in Lane Kiffin as a national championship winning head coach. I think he's a really good football coach, but I think there's a ceiling to him. I think that's 10 wins, which would be an improvement at Florida. Like, I think you could guarantee Florida in a decade, they would make the SEC championship game 3 to 4 times, but I don't think they're winning the national championship. That's just my opinion. It is what it is. Florida fans, I think, would be happy with him for a while there. Then they would get sick of him because they can't win the big game, quote unquote, kind of like the James Franklin effect at Penn State. but it is what it is. I'm pulling for Mississippi State, man. They have been through the last few years. Rest in peace, Pirate. Yeah, I actually was higher on Mississippi State than most people, Donovan. I had Mississippi State at the beginning of the year going 6-6. So I do think there's a real opportunity for that to happen, especially if they win this week versus Tennessee. Then definitely can. Keith Rebar, Georgia or dog Bama? I'm taking Bama 2.5. I think Bama's actually going to win that football game. I think people have written off Alabama. I think Ty Simpson might be the best quarterback in the SEC right now. No one's talking about him. Listen, guys, I think Florida State's real. I think Florida State's a bona fide top 10, top 12 team in the country. They lost him in the first week with a brand new quarterback. I have no issue with that. And that game came down to the very end, basically. I know Florida State ran away in the first half, but then it got closer in the second half. So I think Bama's going to win that football game. That's just me personally. Sports Talk with Austin. More important game on Saturday, Penn State, Oregon, or Bama, Georgia? That's a good question. I think I would go Penn State and Oregon for the simple fact I think it has a lot more ramifications for the head coaches. I've seen Kalen DeBoer in the national championship. I've seen Kirby Smart win a national championship. I have not seen Dan Lanning in a national championship, and I have not seen James Franklin win these type of games at home. So I'm going to take that game. And I actually think that's going to be a really, really good football game. I think if you're asking me another thing that I just asked myself in my own head, if there's a game that has a possibility for a blood, I think it's Georgia-Alabama. I really believe that because I don't know if either of those defenses, especially Georgia's on the back end, can hold up. I think Ty Simpson has a really good chance and opportunity to throttle Georgia on the road. I really think that could happen. I think Oregon and Penn State is going to be a very, very good close football game. I think Penn State's going to win that game, though. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cignetti? I like Kirk Cignetti. I think he talks a little bit too much, but it works for where he's at. If he was at a bigger time program, I don't think he should do that. And I think he even knows that. But since he's at Indiana, you kind of have to talk your stuff. You kind of have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself in the headlines because that's how you get attention otherwise at a place like Indiana. You're not going to get the attention at Indiana that you are at a Florida. That's another place. I think Florida could go after Kirk Cignetti. I don't know if he'd be interested, but I think they could. I do not know. That is a great question. I mean, Indiana fans, you'll know because if Florida goes after him, if he's their number one or number two target and he says no, at that point, what job is he going to leave Indiana for? I think Florida's a top 10 job in the sport. So Texas would only come open if Steve Sarkisian left. Alabama's only going to come open if Kalen DeBoer gets fired, and that wouldn't be until the end of next year. Kirby Smart's not leaving. Ryan Day may go to the NFL. I don't see that happening, though. So, other than those jobs in LSU, which I think is I think they're, even if they go 9-3 this year, they keep Brian Kelly because the recruiting seems to be going well now. There's not many jobs that he could leave for if he turns down Florida this cycle. So I think they're going to find out their answer this year if Florida pushes for him, which I would be shocked if they don't. I think Cignetti's on that short list. I think Lane Kiffin's on that short list. And I think Alex Goles is on that short list. I think those are my top three candidates for Florida. I can't really think of anyone else right now. If you want to throw it in the comments, anyone out there, I'd love to know. But those are my top three. I can't really think of anyone else. Sage, Ohio. Indiana has Iowa and at Oregon back-to-back, and at Penn State going to be hard. Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard. And guys, if you want to call in, just call in. I do have the link there in the chat. I've dropped it 3 times. Feel free to call in. I hope that's the right link. But yeah, I don't think Indiana is. Listen, I'm not big on Illinois. I had Illinois 7-5 going into the preseason. I think they were 7-5, 8-4 football team. Duke was the better football team for that game. They just turned the ball over 5 times. I know what people are going to say. Well, they got to be the better team. No, guys, turnovers are not built into football games. They don't happen in every football game, contrary to popular belief. So I'm not a big believer in Illinois, but it's still super impressive to win that game by 53 points. So still super impressive for Indiana, obviously. And Dr. Buckeye, David Greenfield.
Yes. Yeah, how you doing, my man? Great to be able to talk to you. I think it's a great weekend of college football. Want to get into it with you. Let's start off with the game that everybody's talking about. Aside from Ohio State games in the Big Ten, this was the game I had circled, and that's Oregon and Penn State. this to me is interesting. I had question is about this Oregon team kind of coming into the season. They replaced a few key players on defense. You look at it, maybe a receiver or two on offense. You're obviously replacing your quarterback. I got to ask you, can a case be made that Moore is an upgrade over Dillon Gabriel?
This is the thing too. So going into the year, I had two teams that I thought were like overrated in my opinion. I'm 1 for 2. I was wrong on Oregon. I said Notre Dame and Oregon. I was right on Notre Dame. I was wrong on Oregon. And I didn't believe in Dante Moore because what I saw at UCLA, and I realized the town he's working with. But you also had Chip Kelly as your offensive coordinator, and the guy that replaced you when he got benched there, I believe it was Chase. I always forget the first name. It's Chase or Ethan Garbers, who is not a good quarterback. Right. So yeah, I've been super impressed by Oregon, and this game will tell me if he goes out there and throws, let's say 20 of 27 for like 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick or something like that. I don't even care if they win. If it's a close game and he does something like that, then yeah, I think it is an upgrade over Dillon Gabriel. Cause I think Dillon Gabriel, what you saw in the bigger games other than the Ohio State game, like I think that was a lot of luck too, honestly. There's a ceiling to Dillon Gabriel. I don't know if there's a ceiling right now to Dante Moore. I haven't seen it yet. He's played fantastic so far for Oregon.
Yeah, I think his raw athleticism gives him maybe a higher ceiling than Dillon Gabriel. I mean, Gabriel was mobile enough to get outside the pocket and make plays and evade the rush and do some things like that. Hey, I'm a lifelong Browns fan. We're waiting for him to start here. You know what I mean? With the with the Joe Flacco experiment starting to blow up. But and it's a shame because we've got such a great defense. But I do have to say I think Moore's athleticism does give him a higher ceiling. The thing with Gabriel last year, I thought that Oregon kind of did the same thing with Gabriel that they did with Bo Nix. They did a good job of scheming up throws to their speedy wide receivers and letting them do kind of the rest of the work. Not to say that Gabriel doesn't have an arm. I was teasing to a friend of mine. I thought, does he, undersized quarterback? Does he have a water pistol? I think he had plenty of arm strength, to push the ball down the field. But I did think that he had the benefit of a solid group of receivers, and they did some good things through offensive game planning to put him in good positions last year, I thought as well. This game to me also, I have to go there. The James Franklin and Drew Aller factor. We've got to talk about it. Now, let me ask you this. Let's start with Franklin. I think Franklin sometimes gets a little too much blame, but I have to say, I said this to Mark. I made a comparison, and this was an unflattering comparison. And I know this guy won a national championship, albeit with a 2-loss team. I compared him to Les Miles in the past, where he makes just some horrible, bonehead, in-game coaching decisions. And I bear witness to it as an Ohio State fan. I don't know if you have any thoughts about Franklin. Is that maybe one of your bigger gripes with him, is just his in-game decision-making?
Yeah, so the play that comes to mind, they played Ohio State, I think it was like 2015, 2016, 2017. I forget which year it was, but it was like 4th and 2 or 4th and 3. And they just ran
it was
like
18.
A draw. 18, okay. Yeah, he just ran like a draw up the middle. Yep. And I'm like, why are you running that play on 4th and 3 versus a really good defense that I think the quarterback at the time, was it not McSorley? Was it McSorley?
It was Trace McSorley, yep.
Why would you not get him out on a rollout and try to create space with a good athlete? That doesn't make any – that's the thing with him. Like, I've heard a lot of people, Penn State fans especially, compare him to Sark. Listen, Sark has made some like boneheaded decisions in game before, but I've never had a decision where I'm like, that makes no sense. Like there's certain decisions I watch James Franklin and there's 0% chance I would ever do the same thing. None. And that's my biggest issue with him. And then you see like the stuff where he gets in trouble with Penn State fans because he goes up to him and talks to him like, why are you doing this? Why? Like, dude, you don't win big games. So they're allowed to do that. So yeah, I agree. I actually think Drew Aller gets too much hate.
I was going to go there next.
Yeah, that Penn State versus Oregon Big Ten championship game, I thought he balled out. I thought he
played well.
Game. Yeah. And they couldn't stop Oregon at all.
Right.
And he's never had any help at wide receiver. So to me, this is a prove-it year for both of them. Like they should beat Oregon at home. I think they will. I think they should, because I believe in their defense more than I believe in Oregon's. I don't think Oregon's defense is that good. I watched them versus Northwestern, and I can see some things where I could see them having issues tackling good athletes in space. So we'll see if that's the thing. Does Penn State have those type of athletes? I don't know. They're supposed to this year, but I don't know.
Well, see, that was the thing. That's why I thought we would get Oregon again when we played them again. Is I thought we could exploit matchups in their secondary, which we did the first time we played them. We just couldn't get enough stops on Gabriel, and then we ran out of time in that game up in Eugene last year. But that's the one thing about Oregon is, in big games, their defense has been exposed at times. Now, can Aller in this passing game do it? I'm with you. I've given a pass on Aller in certain big games. Now, the Notre Dame game, he did lose me last year in that semifinal game.
Yeah.
I know his receivers didn't play well in that game either. But at the same time, he threw a bad pick. He missed a couple open receivers in key situations. And, this is it. I agree with you. The best of his big game performances was that Big Ten title game last year against Oregon. Wholeheartedly agree. So I think the path here, though, I think they need a big game out of Singleton and Allen. I think they have to be able to run the football in this game to, set up some of the passing game. Just kind of a gut feeling as far as what they're going to have to do to be successful.
I don't disagree with that because I don't think Oregon's run defense is very good.
All right. So what's your gut?
I would take Penn State.
Okay.
I believed in them early on. I'm going to continue to believe them. I'm very key and heavy on if I made a preseason prediction, I'm going to stay with it until it proves me wrong. So I'm going to go with Penn State.
I'm kind of like a Klatt pick. I saw his picks earlier today. He went like 31-30. I don't have a lot of conviction on it. I'm going to go 31-28. And the 3 points is just because Penn State's playing at home. And I think I'm with you. I think they can run the football. I think Aller can hit just enough throws for them to win, and maybe they get a red zone stop or force a key turnover. I think that's the path. All right, what do you think of Georgia, Alabama? I have to say Georgia's got them in the right spot. Although, I always say they lost a lot of those games in the Georgia Dome, so but they do have them in Athens. Alabama's playing a little bit better football, but I'm still not a buyer in Alabama. I think this is a game that Georgia should get at home. I know the Kirby Smart track record against Alabama. I get it. But, Georgia showed me a lot after that Tennessee game. I think, because they down 21-7. Tennessee hit them with some haymakers early in that game. And then I thought Stockton played a lot better as that game wore along.
So I'm going to be on the opposite. I think Ty Simpson right now might be the best quarterback or playing like the best quarterback in the country. Like, I've been very impressed after that Florida State game, and I'm going to give him a pass. Like, first start on the road versus what I think is like a legitimately top 10 team in Florida State. So I do think they're going to go in there and win. I will say this too. I think Georgia's back in on defense is pretty bad. Like,
I agree with you.
Versus Tennessee was not good. And Bud Elliott brought this up on the Cover 3 podcast, and I thought about it, and he's right.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer does a really good job versus Nick Saban style defenses. Think what he did versus Dan Lanning at Washington. They moved the ball up and down versus them. He's done that versus Georgia. For whatever reason, his scheme works very well versus a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban style defense.
Right. Obviously, last year the Ryan Williams coming out party game and one of the big Milroe games of the season last year. I'm with you. I did think the Georgia defense played a lot better in the second half of that game than they did in the first half of that game, which is a big reason they were able to make that comeback. But I agree. I think there are some holes in that secondary. And usually how you beat Georgia, how we had our shot at them in 22, is a hot quarterback. A quarterback that can exploit that defense. Typically how you crack the code of a Saban defense all those years. A hot quarterback and receivers, making plays. And I could see the Williams-Simpson combination having a day. I don't know. Georgia, you're really that confident Alabama goes into Athens and wins?
That's literally the only reason I'm even thinking about it is because it's in Athens and they haven't lost a game there in, I think, 4 or 5 years. I think it was pre-COVID. I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
So 6 years, actually, it's going to be soon because I think it was later in the half of that year. So, and that's the thing, too. If they win this game, the next hardest game they have is us at home. If they win that game, they're not going to lose it all this year at home again. But someone's going to have to get them. And that's the thing, too. Like, neither of these pass rushes are that good. Like, usually you look at these teams and they have one guy that you're like, oh, crap, we got to guard this guy, or even two. Neither of these teams have that this year. So if neither of these teams have it, who has the better wide receivers? I think Alabama does. Who has the better defensive backs? I think Alabama does.
Well, I tell you what, I think the Georgia receivers are underrated. I think that Delp is a pretty good player, and I think the guy that they got from USC, the transfer, Zachariah Branch, who was a high recruit, is a weapon too. So they have a couple of really good targets to throw the ball to. So you know what? I envision a similar game to what we saw last year in Tuscaloosa. I think we see points in this one. I think this game is mid to upper 30s. And maybe whoever has the ball less, although I guess Georgia had the ball less. Well, and then Carson Beck, he threw a bad pick at the end. But although maybe we got a different Carson Beck this year. Who knows?
Yeah, he looks better, but I think the wide receivers are a lot better at Miami than they were at Georgia.
That's true.
Georgia did not have any good wide receivers last year. What do you think about the LSU Ole Miss game?
You know what? I got to go there. I'm wondering, first of all, how good Ole Miss is. You know, because I still have my doubts about LSU. I'm buying the fact that the defense has improved. Boy, and man, if they could have given Jaden Daniels this defense in 2023, this team would have won the national championship, by the way. If they played any lick of defense with that offense that year, I always say that team would have won it all. But if you look at it, I'm still a doubter in Nussmeier in this offense. You know, it's interesting. I brought up the Brian Kelly rant after the Florida game, which I think just shows you why people dislike Brian Kelly so much. But I'm just not a buyer in Nussmeier in this LSU offense. I really think Ole Miss could pull the upset.
Yeah, I think I told 2 weeks ago we talked, and that was my comment. I thought LSU's defense had actually proven enough to me where I said they're better than their offense, and that's been the case. Like they are better than their offense, which is crazy. It's so weird to me. Like we have all these preconceived notions going into the year, and then that some of them just get totally flipped, and that's when they got totally flipped. I mean Trinidad Chambliss is going to start for Ole Miss. I actually think he's probably better than Austin Simmons, anyways. From what I've seen, I've not been impressed by Austin Simmons, so. And that line is weird. Like, that's another thing. Why is it a 1.5 points when I think most of the money's on LSU? So it's actually come down to Ole Miss.
Yes.
These teams to me are like, LSU is one of the most overrated teams in the country. I think both these teams are somewhere in between like the 18 and 25 range. That's what I think both these teams are.
I agree I was going to say, you know, I would say Ole Miss 15 to 20, maybe LSU in the top 15 somewhere. They're definitely not a top 10 team. I can think of 10 better football teams than LSU. And for all those people that had Nussmeier as a first-round draft pick, you're missing me on that. You know, I still have yet to see it in a big game. It was very not impressive at all against Florida, by the way, and neither was their offense. So
someone's got to be a first-round pick. I don't even know who that's going to be right now.
Well, who are some of the? I mean, you look at it. It's interesting. Some of the quarterbacks that are playing their best are the quarterbacks that are off the radar this year in college football. Yeah. But I guess it wouldn't even be that much of an upset if Ole Miss wins this game. I mean, would you say the line's at 1.5 now?
I think it dropped to 1.5. The last time I checked, which was like 15, 20 minutes ago, it was 1.5.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's calmed down. Like, it's 1.5. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm leaning Ole Miss in this one. How about you?
Especially looking at this, 65% of the money's on LSU spread, but the spread's come down. Yeah, I'm going to take Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think LSU's offense is overrated. Actually, I just don't even think it's that good. So yeah, I actually think Ole Miss pulls this out. All right, what are your thoughts? I wanted to get your thoughts. I talked to Mark a little bit about Washington and Ohio State. What are your thoughts on that one?
I just don't see how Washington can stop you guys. Like,
okay.
I mean, this is the thing too. So they said, and I believe it to some extent, when you played us, like they held Julian Sand back and held the playbook back. I do believe that to an extent. But if that is true, when are you going to release the playbook? Because at some point you're going to have to do it, and you're going to want to do it in a type of game like this where you feel like the opponent's good, but they're not good enough to beat. Like if Ohio State plays their A game, they're beating Washington. So you don't want to go into a big game and be like, okay, now we're releasing it. Now you're going all out. At some point, they're going to have to say, this is the playbook. We're running the whole playbook. Are they going to do that versus Washington? I don't know. Washington has a good enough offense where I think they can hang around. And if Julian Sand, like this is his first road start and it's a super hard environment, if he goes in there and he struggles, does Ohio State, I know Ohio State fans have worried about this. Do you guys think you have a good enough run game to go in there and just keep it on the ground the whole game?
That's the question. They have saw the emergence of Bo Jackson, who's was third on their depth chart. They really like him. I'll be interested to see how the carries are divvied up. Really, you're kind of going where I was going to go. How aggressive the Brian Hartline Ryan Day offensive game plan is going to be. I did watch. I told Mark I did. Interesting enough, I watched a little over half of the Washington State game last week, and Washington State moved the football. For 3 quarters. They moved the football pretty well. And it was actually only a 1-possession game going into the 4th quarter. So I do think Ohio State is going to move the ball. I think the best hope for Washington to stop Ohio State is just to play really good 20 to 20 defense. I hear they're running a lot of man. I hear they have some long corners, but running man coverage against Ohio State is a tough ask. So that's going to be interesting. I think the thing is containing that Washington offense. I think Williams is a really good dual threat quarterback.
Yes.
They got a good tailback in Coleman and a really good wide receiver in Boston. I've said I thought Ohio State's back 7 is as good or better than anybody's in the country. So I like our chances with our linebackers and our secondary to hang with them. If Ohio State avoids turnovers, I think Ohio State wins this game by at least 10 points.
I agree with that.
I'm somewhere in the 34-24, 35-24 kind of realm. That's just kind of my, early vibe. Ohio State maybe gets a red zone stop, forces a turnover. A really good game maybe for 3.5 quarters, and they get a late touchdown to put it away.
I don't disagree with that. And I think Washington, is a legitimately good football team. I going into the year, I think I had them as – I thought they'd go 9-3. I didn't have them winning this game. And they're not ranked, which is crazy to me. I think they're a legitimately top 30 team at least, and they didn't get any votes, which is stupid. But
they're well coached.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Jeb Fish is a good coach, and I like Damon Williams. It's going to be interesting, like you said. Takario Davis is the cornerback. He's 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
Is he going to play? Because I know he's been kind of banged up if he plays in this game. And then, like you said, are they going to run man? Because I don't understand. Listen, the teams that are successful for just you guys, and it seems the past few years have been Texas and Michigan at playing defense.
Yes.
And we do not play man coverage when we play you. I mean, Texas doesn't anyways. We play cover 3 or we play Tampa 2, and we say, if you want to throw these things in front of us, we'll make the tackle and we'll move on. But you're not getting over our head. When Notre Dame decided to run man coverage, we saw what happened. So I don't understand why Washington would even attempt to do that.
Well, it's crazy. I saw a statistic a few years ago. A lot of teams are just wedded to playing man coverage across college football and really don't practice or play that much zone. To be real with you, because I think so many college teams, especially the upper echelon teams, feel that they can out-athlete a lot of teams with their corners being better than a lot of teams' wide receivers. But yet that once they run into a really good wide receiver group, like Ohio State, maybe an LSU even, back when they're, have great wideouts, it's tough. Because I agree with you. Keep everything in front of you, play good 20 to 20 defense, try and force some field goals, give up yards, but not touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Texas, if they wanted to, could probably play a little bit more man versus you guys, because there's only one guy on my team that I don't feel good about getting beat, and that's Jalen Gilbo. But some of these other teams just don't make any sense. Like you said, a lot of teams don't do it. I saw 2019 LSU play 2019 Alabama, where they had Pat Surtain, and I forget the other cornerback on the other side.
I think it was Diggs.
Yeah, I think it might have been Diggs. And they were having trouble covering. And those are 2 NFL. One guy just won the Defensive Player of the Year award. Yeah. And he had trouble covering Jamar Chase. When you're going, it's hard to cover man-to-man for 80 plays during a football game. It just is. You're going to get beat 5 to 6 of them. And then let's say 2 of those go for big touchdowns. That's 14 points, where if you just played zone, you could have kept everything in front of you.
Well, that's why you see so many big plays in college football.
Yeah.
So, hey, any thoughts on USC and Illinois? I did not see that coming last week against Illinois. I did not think Mendoza looked legit, by the way, at Indiana.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if USC is for real or if they're a little bit of fool's gold at 4-0. I know Maeva is played pretty well at quarterback for them. They've got some decent skill. Any thoughts on that one, or if that could be an interesting one? I know I believe you said earlier you had Illinois at 7-5 before the start of the season.
I did. I was completely out on them. They never string together back-to-back really. They're like South. It's funny. They played each other in a bowl game, and they're the same team historically, it seems like to me, over the past decade, 15 years. South Carolina, Illinois never string back-to-back good seasons together. They never do.
True.
So that's why I was out on them. And teams like that, people need to realize when there's like 4 to 5 peel and replace programs in college football. So if you lose like high-level NFL players from an Illinois, from South Carolina, you can't just go out and, we're bringing in another 5-star. We'll be fine. There's Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon is almost to that point. They're like one class away from being to that point.
Yes.
Teams like that aren't. So that's why I had them at 7-5. They could be 8-4, but 7-5, 8-4 type of team. Yeah, I had USC 10-2 just because I thought the schedule was easy. And I think Jordan Maia, I always forget mess up his last name, Jordan Maeva. I think he's legitimately a good quarterback. I actually think he fits better in the system than like a Caleb Williams. Like Caleb Williams just likes to do his own thing, whereas this guy actually fits in the system and does what Lincoln Riley wants him to do. And their defense has gotten a lot better, like they have.
See, I was surprised that Bert's defense looks as bad as it does this year. Usually, they're very mid on offense. Maybe they get, a Chase Brown. They find a good tailback here and there. I thought they would be solid on defense. To me, it was just a matter of whether Altmaier would level up at quarterback, play a little bit better this year, and then maybe that's a team, because I thought their schedule was a little bit favorable too. Number one, I didn't expect them to get boat raced at Indiana, but yeah. But the Cignetti train, you're right, is hot right now. If Cignetti goes back-to-back years of taking Indiana to the playoff, does that dude write his own ticket for whatever job he wants next, by the way?
Either that or he writes his own check in Indiana.
Well,
because,
there's, ceiling there, yeah, Matt.
That's what I was saying before, like, if Florida offers him the job and he says no, what job realistically is he waiting for?
Yeah.
There's not that many jobs better than Florida. I think there's realistically, like, you could guarantee, I think Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. I think that's like guaranteed. Those are the only 5 jobs I would take over Florida.
So you wouldn't say that the other 2 Florida programs would be as good, or no?
I think it's a better job in Florida State. It might not be as good of a job as I don't know though, because like stadium atmosphere and that stuff matters.
That's true.
Miami does not have that, so I don't know. That's actually a really good question. I don't know where I'd put Florida State, Miami, and Florida in the state of things. Like if they're all going the same, they're all really good programs when they're going. We saw what Miami did. We saw what Urban Meyer did at Florida, and we saw what Bobby Bowden did at Florida State. But they all never go at the same time either. Like it's always one or the other.
Well, there was a little bit of, I think, kind of overlap, like early to mid-90s. Yeah. Like when Spurrier was there, kind of the end of the Miami run. And then Bowden had Florida State going strong throughout the 90s. But, yeah, a couple of weeks, by the way, or was it next week we get Miami and Florida State, by the way?
Yeah, I think it is next week.
Shades of the bring back the 90s all over again. Miami and Florida State. Wow. I thought they've been playing a big one. Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be a good week, my friend. I think we're going to have some good ones. I think we're going to get to the better part of the college football schedule because we're going to start to get into conference play. And then we're going to get these big conference matchups over the course of the next few weeks. So I think it's going to be really good stuff.
No, I agree. I think this week is probably the best so far. And then I know when Texas plays Oklahoma for Red River, that week is like loaded too. I forget the other games, but there's a bunch of like really good football games on that weekend as well.
Are you feeling a little bit better about Arch in the passing game moving forward here?
Yeah, so I know everyone keeps saying it was Sam Houston, but the process looked better. Like, that's the thing, too. Like, if you're going to knock him for playing bad versus UTEP, you also have to give him credit for playing good versus Sam Houston, because guess what? They're going to play each other, Sam Houston and UTEP, and that game's going to be like 27-10 UTEP. Like, there's not that much that separates those two teams. They're both really bad football teams, and he looked horrific versus UTEP, and he looked good versus Sam Houston. Like, the process was better. And I don't need him to be great. Like, with the defense we have, if he could be a B- overall at quarterback, they can run through the SEC schedule they have. I mean, Florida is horrific offensively. So unless something changes, I don't know how they score more than 14 points at most versus us.
Yes.
Then we play Oklahoma, and if they don't have Napier, Michael Hawkins isn't scoring anything versus our defense.
Is the Napier injury serious?
So today I heard it was somewhere between 15 to 21 days. So it's literally going to
Wow.
be a game time decision for Red River, is my opinion.
Well, I made that point to Mark that you had made. If they ever get anything, I had thought that them not getting much out of the tailback hurt them. You know what I mean? And running Napier as many times as they did, I think that's a point you made to me when we spoke before about Oklahoma, which I totally agree with you. If they get anything out of the tailback, because their skill on the outside's pretty good, and I'm buying at the fact that their defense has gotten a little bit better, then that team becomes a real dangerous team with Napier in there.
Yeah, again, you can't have your starting quarterback be your
leading rusher. Yeah.
Unless you're Cam Newton or Johnny Manziel, and he's not. Like, he's a tier, maybe 2 tiers under that, then you can't win a national championship. Johnny Manziel didn't win a national championship that way, so you can't even win big-time college football that way. You're going to lose too many games. And that's the thing, too, like, Michael Hawkins, if they tried to run that type of offense with him, he's a smaller guy. Like, he's 6'1", 215 pounds, and we saw what happened when they played us. They lost 34-6, 31-6, something like that. They got killed.
Well, I know you appreciate the rivalry, but I'm sure you want both teams to be at full strength, right, Matt?
Oh, no, 100% I do. I think we'll beat him with him, honestly. So I'm not. They don't. The team that concerns me the most, going here on out, other than Georgia, is Vanderbilt. They scare me.
They're sneaky. I hear you. I did not know the Napier injury was that serious, but I definitely want to see Red River with Napier and Arch and both teams fully healthy. That's going to be fun. So
yeah, it should be a top 10 matchup. Be a really good game.
Matt, always a pleasure. Good job holding down the fort tonight, my friend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you too, David.
Always good to see you. Take care now.
See ya. That was David Greenshield. We really appreciate the call from him. And let's see if I can. Hey, what's up, Austin?
What's up, Matthew? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing pretty good. Excited about this week's slate. A couple things I want to talk about, and I want to get the controversial one out of the way. I may be in the minority with this, but I actually picked Washington to upset Ohio State on Saturday. And I know a lot of people may disagree with me on that, but the reason why I picked Washington to win this game is there's something about going to Washington and going to that stadium and playing in that stadium and trying to win. There's something about it. Like, people underestimate how good of a home field advantage they have, no matter how good or bad their team is. Like last year against Michigan, Michigan was like, I think, a 14.5-point favorite going into that game, and they lost by 2 touchdowns, I believe it was. And I just think with that, I just feel like that there's something about that stadium that I think they can pull this off on Saturday. And what do you think? Am I crazy for thinking that?
I think they can. If we're breaking this down percentage wise, I think I'd give Ohio State like an 85% chance to win this football game. I just think it's going to have to require a lot because I don't think Washington's defense is very good. But Damon Williams has the talent to where I think if he went nuclear in this game, they could score 27, 30 points. And then if they're taking up enough time as well on offense, I think that might be able to get it done. But that's the thing too, like if Julian Sand is truly as good as Ohio State fans think he is, which they think he's on the level or right near C.J. Stroud in college, Ohio State should win this game like 45-24 because that offense should be able to go nuclear versus Washington's secondary and Washington's defense.
Mm-hmm. And I understand Washington has some key injuries, but I just feel like, if Ohio State turns the football over, and that seems to be what Washington does best at home. We've seen it over the years many times, is they turn football teams over, and that's how they get on you. And if Ohio State goes down 10-0, 14-0 early, and that fan base is into it, they feel confidence off that. And I feel like if they could turn Ohio State over early and jump on them, they've got a legitimate chance to win. And that's why I think they can win this football game. Heck, that's why I picked them to win. I may be overselling the Huskies, but I just think there's something special about them at home against a big opponent.
I mean, that stadium is probably one of the 5 or 6 best in the whole country. So, I mean, I don't disagree with that. It is. I think it makes it. It's always a big deal when it's the person's first start on the road, and it's going to be Julian Sands' first start on the road in a super, super hostile environment. Like, you're asking Ryan Day, I bet he wishes he was going to Purdue or Northwestern or someone like that, where you don't have to baptize him by fire. Like, this is going to be baptism by fire. This might be the loudest stadium he ever plays in college. So I don't disagree.
And that's the thing too. And think about this too. Is I've kind of been thinking about this. If Washington wins this game, like, think about the way that shakes up the Big Ten, Matthew, as we see it, because the consensus 3 favorites are your Penn State, Oregon, Michigan, and Ohio State. They're your 4. But if Washington could somehow win this game, talk about flipping the Big Ten on its head quickly. You've got Ohio State sitting at 0-1 in the Big Ten already, and Washington at 1-0. And all of a sudden, Washington is a team everyone needs to watch for now. Do you think going forward, if Washington can win this game, it sets a precedence that going to the Pacific Northwest, these teams that are more southern, do you think they will be more hesitant to accept these challenges within their conference of going to play the Washingtons and Oregons on the road?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to accept the challenge, but they're not going to be as happy about it. And I don't think they are happy about it in general, because I think we've seen that when teams go west and you have to travel through 3 time zones. And if you're like Michigan State, who had to basically play on their body clock, they were playing that game at 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I mean, that's never a good thing. I think that is a reason to pick Washington spread for sure, because I forget what the record is, but it's crazy good for the team that plays at home, where the East Coast team has to travel all the way. And I bet it's the same in the prior week as well. And that's what's funny, because Washington plays Maryland next week. I was looking at their schedule. I mean, I could see Washington, like you said, if they win this football game and then they have to go to the East Coast, Malik Washington and Maryland could beat Washington the next week. That would not surprise me.
Mm-hmm. And another interesting statistic I want to bring up about this is Washington has won 22 straight home games. That's a pretty impressive feat. It shows you that they are a dominant home team. But Ohio State hasn't lost a Big Ten opener since, I believe, I forget what they said, but Ohio State hadn't lost a Big Ten opener in almost a decade, I think. So something's got to give Saturday. I mean, I just don't know, Matthew. That's where I kind of flipped the coin a little bit. Like when they brought that up. I mean, what do you think?
I'm gonna take Ohio State to win the game, but I think it's close. Like, if I would say like 37-24. Like, I consider that anything within 2 touchdowns, I think, is a pretty close football game. I don't think it's gonna be.
And the other thing I want to talk to you about is Penn State, Oregon, Bama, Georgia. Both games are on at the same time. Obviously, there's going to be a ratings war. Do you think the Big Ten, do you think they'll win the ratings war on Saturday, or do you think the SEC will win out? Because we always hear about the SEC getting the best television product, how they're the premier brand in college football. Do you think, with Oregon, Penn State being on the opposite channel, do you think this is their chance to beat them out in the ratings war?
No, I think Alabama, Georgia is going to win. I'm going to say unfortunately, but unfortunately, because if you look at the TV ratings in the past, Alabama, Georgia, when they don't even play each other, get better ratings than Penn State or Oregon separately. So when they play together, they're going to get better ratings. Now, if you ask me, if I could only watch one of those games, I'd rather watch Penn State, Oregon. I actually think I just have a gut feeling that Alabama might blow out Georgia. Like, if you beat them by 14 points on the road, that's a blowout to me. I mean, that's so I could see that happen. I don't really see that with Penn State, Oregon. I think that's going to be a really, really close football game.
And I could see that too, because Georgia does have some problems in the secondary. They're not the once stout secondary that we once knew them as either, because Tennessee and Joey Aguilar did chop them up a couple weeks ago. But their front seven, though, that's still their strong suit. And if Bama can't run the ball, here's my thing. If Bama can't run the ball and Ryan Williams is on an island and he can't get open, I feel like their offense is very limited. Whereas with Milroe last year, I feel like his ability to threaten a defense, whereas Ty Simpson's not as mobile, I feel like that's where they lose their edge. I don't know if you disagree with me or not, but I would like your take on that, Matthew.
No, I agree with that. Like, as much crap as Jalen Milroe got, the guy was a super dynamic athlete. So even if he wasn't hitting his passes, he could always run. I mean, we saw that when they played LSU. That team could not stop the run at all. He rushed for like over 200 yards and multiple touchdowns in that game, and they easily won the football game. So it always allowed you another avenue. And I think it's kind of funny because both these teams, like going into the year, I think we thought, oh, they're both going to have really good defenses, which I think Alabama has a really good defense. I don't think Georgia's defense is really good. Their back end is pretty suspect to me. We both thought, hey, they're going to be able to run the ball for Alabama and Georgia. Neither of these teams are very good at running the football. Their best runner on Georgia is probably their quarterback was Stockton. And Alabama's really struggled. And everyone keeps talking about Ryan Williams. I think Ryan Williams is the second best wide receiver on that team. I think Jeremy Bernard's the best wide receiver, and I think he's going to have a big role in that game.
I like it. Okay. I mean, Bernard has been making a name for himself, but as we know, the game plan is going to be for Ryan Williams. I feel like Kirby's not going to take it lightly that he's over there. And I will say this, too. For Gunnar Stockton, Matthew, he showed me a lot against Tennessee because I was on one of them. I didn't know if he could be the guy, but what he did against Tennessee, he showed me a lot of heart and guts. I was like, you know what? That's a guy I could see playing quarterback. That's a guy I want on my team. I don't know where you stood on Gunnar Stockton, Matthew, but he's earned a lot of my respect after his Tennessee performance.
No, I agree. Like I was never high on him or low on him. I thought some people just said he was like one of the worst quarterbacks in the SEC coming to the year. I completely disagreed with that. I think I ranked him like 8th or 9th. Like I thought he was an average SEC quarterback. He's better than that. Like he's a good quarterback. I actually compare him. He reminds me a lot of Sam Ehlinger for Texas that used to play here. They're really hard-nosed gamers who I think there's obviously a ceiling to them, but with the amount of talent he has around him, I think they can win 10 games at Georgia, and 10 games gets you in the playoffs. So that's my feeling on him.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, too, he's not a quarterback that's going to cost you a game. I feel like he's like a Stetson Bennett. He's not going to – like Stetson had those moments where he did win the games, but a lot of it was on the defense. I feel like Gunnar is kind of in that range. He's not going to lose you a game, but he'll be there when you need him the most, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that.
And last thing I will say is Notre Dame. I mean, Matthew, you were spot on about Notre Dame. Golly, their offense, like they could score, but their defense, good grief. Is Chris Ash, like, is he on a hot seat or what? Or are we being too hasty? I mean,
I would give him a little bit more time, but that's things like I don't know who they would elevate to that position on staff. I haven't like read enough about Notre Dame to know if it's like there's a linebacker coach there they like or a secondary coach they like. I think Mike Mickens is their secondary coach, so maybe they elevate him to defensive coordinator. But yeah, it's weird. You know, I thought they were going to take a step back, and I didn't know Al Golden would be missed this much because their offense is clearly better than it was last year. Like, if you trade this offense for last year's offense, maybe they win the national championship because their defense last year was very good. I disagree with how much man they play, and I still think that's the issue. I don't know why they play so much man. Just got done talking to David about that. I think you should play zone as much as possible in college football unless you just have 2 to 3 NFL players on your back end and high-level ones at that, and I don't think Notre Dame has that. They have Leonard Moore, but then the other guys back there I don't think are that good. And you saw what Texas A&M did with all that speed. Like, I love Mario Craver. I like Casey Concepcion, and they absolutely torched that secondary.
Mm-hmm. And what I will say to that too, Matthew, is here's the thing. Because we talked a couple weeks ago about this, and we both kind of were in the same thing of with Al Golden leaving. We thought it was going to hinder the defense for at least a couple games. But the way that they're just giving up yards and points left and right like a pinball machine, it's kind of concerning because this is not what you see from Notre Dame. Normally, Notre Dame, you can always count on having good safeties, good corners, and a good defense. You can always count on that. And they're giving up 30 points to Purdue. And listen, this isn't Jeff Brom's Purdue. I give Barry Odom grace. He's trying to turn Purdue around and give them a little juice that they need again. But giving up 30 points to this Purdue, that's getting a little pathetic. And I feel like we're getting to the point now, Matthew, where Notre Dame, is sitting here thinking, are we going to have to win shootouts every single week? Are we going to feel like the Bengals and like with Joe Burrow and company? Like, are we going to have to win shootouts every week to keep our playoff hopes alive? And it's just like, I don't know if Notre Dame's built to do that. Like, I don't know if they could do that consistently. What do you think?
I don't think they have the playmakers at wide receiver to do that. I think they have the running backs to do that. I think they have I actually like CJ Carr. I think their offensive line solid, but I don't think they have the wide receivers. I mean, Jaden Greathouse has been a huge disappointment for me watching them. I thought he'd show up and show out this year, and he just hasn't done that. Notre Dame usually has a stud tight end. It seems to me like they don't really have that as well. And it's funny you said the Bengals because that's where Al Golden is. Maybe they bring him back from the Bengals. But yeah, I was never going to be high on this Notre Dame team. I thought they overachieved last year, and I thought they were going to come back down to earth a little bit. I had them, I believe, at 9-3, so I expect them to lose another game. I think I have them losing to USC. But I mean, if they go 9-3, they're exactly where I thought they'd be. So, and now if they lose someone else, which is very weak, then there's going to be a lot of questions being asked. And that's the thing, too. Like, I like Marcus Freeman, but I think a lot of that, man, he got a lot of grace because people forget he lost in Northern Illinois at home, and that was all washed away because they made the national championship. But I still have a lot of questions.
And here's the thing, too, and I want your opinion on this is I talk to a lot of friends that are Notre Dame fans, and they keep telling me, they're like, if we run the table and go 10-2, we could still make the playoffs. I mean, and I've even sat there and looked at their schedule, kind of like everyone else has. What would be their marquee win now that you could say, okay, we could point to that and say, that's a good win, Notre Dame. Good for you. Because it seems like unless the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, unless all four conferences fall apart, Notre Dame's basically going to need a miracle to happen to make the playoffs, even if they win out. Am I right or wrong, Pat?
No, you're right, because unfortunately for them, Arkansas, if they didn't fumble the ball, would be 4-0, and if they went on the road and beat them, that'd be a good win, because I think at that point, you're probably looking at a team in Arkansas that wins 8 games, and if they win 8 games, that's going to be a ranked win. I'm not a fan of counting ranked wins like when they happen, like let's say Arkansas was ranked this week and then fell apart. That shouldn't be a ranked win to me. But if you look at the rest of the schedule, I mean, there's really only one possibility for a ranked win, and that's USC. So if you're talking about a 10-2 Notre Dame versus, let's see, a 9-3 Oklahoma, a 9-3 Texas, a 9-3 LSU, a 9-3 Texas A&M, I think you have to go with those SEC teams because I look at Texas' schedule. Even if they go 9-3, they're going to have 2 ranked wins, I think. So that's better than 1, and the losses will be better because well, maybe not. I do like Miami, but we'll have to see about Texas A&M. I'm not 100% sold there yet. I do think they're a good football team, but I'm not super high on them. But Miami is a legitimately good football team, and you only lost on the road by 3. So I think there's a shot there for them to make the playoff, but I mean, it's probably like 10 to 15%.
It's one of them, like, we're not going to say no, but it's not looking good. And I will say this too. Penn State, Oregon, that's the game I'm looking forward to the most. I picked Penn State to win by a field goal, 31-28 is what I said. And I think this is a game that's important for both teams, obviously, because both teams need it. But I feel like this is a Drew Aller, James Franklin legacy game. And what I mean by that is I feel like they've got this stigma of they can't win the big game, obviously, like you've talked about with Mr. David earlier. I feel like if they win this, they kind of shake some of that off. Not all of it, but they kind of shake some of that of, okay, we can trust Penn State to win against the non-Boise State type team. We can trust them to beat a team like an Oregon or a team of the Michigan and Oregon levels. So do you think, on my theory about this being a legacy game for both, would you agree with that, Matthew?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny because this was like 2 years down the road. I think you can make the same case for Dan Lanning. I don't think he's there yet because he really has. I mean, he hasn't got enough opportunities, but he hasn't won a big game on the road yet. His opportunities were versus Washington. He lost both those games. So we'll have to see. But, yeah, I completely agree because at this point, obviously, if James Franklin gets enough opportunities, he will win a big game at some point. But the question needs to be asked, if not now, when? Because you have your team. You are the most experienced team left in college football that has a realistic chance to win the national championship because Clemson is clearly out of that race at this point. You have Drew Aller, who was brought up to be, the next guy, the first-round pick, all of that. You have 2 NFL running backs. You have all these you have all these talented wide receivers. You always field a good defense. So the thing that I'm going to be looking at is you. And you've made some boneheaded decisions in the past. Are you going to do that in this game? I don't know. This is your chance to squash all those narratives. It is. Can he squash them? I don't know if he can. But I agree. I think Penn State's football game, I think 27-23, 27-24, something like that. I think it's going to be a really good football.
Well, and I will say this too, Matthew. I feel like, this is Allard's big chance to erase that whole Notre Dame. Because if they win this game, I feel like that whole he sucks in the clutch time, all that, I think it goes away Saturday. Because you beat an Oregon team who a lot of people picked to win the whole thing. I've seen some people in the preseason say Oregon's going to win it all. And that's fair. I mean, Oregon's got a really good team. But you were talking about it earlier, how you weren't sure about Dante Moore. This is a big game for him as well. So we'll see on Saturday. I mean, it's a whiteout game. And it's probably the biggest game that Oregon is going to play today. I believe it's the biggest game on their schedule, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's the biggest game for both these teams. Like, if Penn State wins this game, they should – well, they play Ohio State, but they should, walk into – if they win that game, they're going undefeated. The rest of the schedule is very easy. Oregon, same here. Like, this is their biggest game today. It is their hardest game on their schedule. So, if they win this game, they could go 11-1, which would be really good for them. I had them 9-3. That's what I thought they'd go. I thought they'd take a step back, but they proved me wrong so far. But then again, my God, Oklahoma State is a freaking god-awful football team. Northwestern is not a good football team. So we'll see what they're made of in this game.
Yeah, I had Oregon going 9-3 too. I was in the same boat with you. But Matthew, it's always appreciate to talk to you. And Texas looked good last week. I got to give it to him. Arch found his swagger a little bit. I know you and David touched on it, but I'm glad to see Arch is starting to come out of his funk a little bit. I can't wait to see Arch when he plays Oklahoma and plays Georgia and plays Florida in the Swamp. See if he brings that confidence with him. I think he will.
Yeah, I don't think Florida's a very good football team overall, but their defense is really good, so we're going to need him to play at least a pretty good football game versus them.
But I'm glad he's out of his funk, and for Texas, hopefully they win it all for you, Mr. Matthew, because that would be nice.
I would love that.
But thank you, as always, for taking my call, and go Cards, Matthew.
Go Cards, Austin. See ya. The real MVP, are you there?
I am. How are you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing good. I didn't get to speak to you last time, so I'm looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it too. Can some people tell me what's up with this Washington hype? Matthew. Washington? West Coast Iowa, Illinois, Indiana caliber team? People acting like they're the 85 Bears or the 01 Hurricanes. Listen, Washington's probably a solid team. What evidence do they have? They've beaten Colorado State, Washington State, UC Davis. They've played nobody good. They struggled against the 2 mid-major opponents deep into the game in Colorado State, Washington State. Ohio State better blow this team out. The only reason I believe people are like, well, Washington's this good team is because their brand and because it's a new face. When you see somebody new, you're interested in them, you got more of an eye on them type thing. That's all this is. If this was Iowa this week, people will be like, oh, of course Ohio State's going to beat Iowa because that's what they always do. That should be the mindset going into this game for everybody. People acting like Washington has a chance to win this game is amazing to me. It would be like, what? What if South Carolina can beat Alabama? What if they can beat Alabama? Over the last 15 years, every single year we ask that question. That's how absurd this Washington love and respect is. Trojan fight, it was 59-24, but if you watched the game, you would know into the fourth
game of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter, it was 31-24. They scored 28 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, against Washington State, that's not good. Washington State, a team that beat Idaho by 3 points.
And they got killed. Didn't they get killed by North Texas?
Yeah, they lost 59-10.
Yeah.
They're not good.
Yeah, this is the thing, though. I will say, you brought up Iowa. I watched Ohio State get skull-dragged when they went to Kinnick one year. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen versus Washington because I don't think it's going to happen. But I do think, I think they have a little bit better shot than you're giving them. I agree. I'm not picking them to win this game. I think you heard my prediction. I said 37-24, 37-23, something like that. So
yeah, I got it 34-14.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, they have talent. Like, they have 3 really good offensive players on the team that are going to be.
And that's why I put them in the tier of Iowa and stuff. Iowa has talent.
Yeah.
South Carolina has talent. All these teams that are capable have talent. They're a top 40 team in the country. They're just another game for Ohio State. And shout out to Ralph Wolf. Well, maybe the most intelligent comment I've seen all day. And thanks for pulling it up on screen. Indiana would be a top 3 team in the SEC. My gosh. I would please justify this for me. Please.
I can't justify that because I got in an argument with Garrison of the Ohio State channel. He said he would take India. I believe he said this. He would take Indiana to beat Texas right now. And no. Texas would beat the you-know-what out of Indiana because Indiana does not translate to beating high-quality football teams that have good offensive lines, good defensive lines. That's why they beat Illinois, because Illinois' defensive line is not that good this year. Their offensive line is mediocre, and they had a bunch of injuries in that game. Now, do I think Indiana's a legit, top 20, 25 team? Absolutely. I think they would probably be right now the 5th or 6th best team in the SEC. Probably.
No, Matthew, that's way too much respect. Let's just go through the Texas,
okay. 1,
Ole Miss, Oklahoma.
I don't know about Ole Miss. I'm not willing to say Ole Miss.
Okay, let's throw them out. Okay.
Oklahoma.
Missouri.
Again, that's like Oklahoma.
They beat Kansas. Okay, they beat a good Kansas team by 11 points.
I know. Okay, so what we'll do? Let's just go through the obvious ones, and then
Alabama, Georgia,
that's 4.
Tennessee,
A&M.
That's 5 or 6 right there.
Yeah, that's 6. So I think that's right there is the 100% cutoff point.
LSU probably.
Yeah, LSU, so 7. So yeah, that's to me. Those are, so you're right. I would put them probably. You could make the case. The highest you could make the case is 8. I agree with that. And that's the thing, like Ole Miss and Missouri, I agree with you. Like, they're still wait and see for me, but you could make the argument 100%.
I think Missouri, they're better than last year and the previous year, just based off what I've seen eye test wise this early far in the season. Now it's early and things can change, but I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing out of Missouri. Ralph Wolf saying Texas and Georgia are probably the only teams clearly better than Indiana. What?
No. Alabama, I don't think. Like, Alabama would beat the crap out of Indiana. I'm trying to think. I think A&M right now would. I think A&M might be playing the best football of anyone in the SEC currently, other than Oklahoma. So yeah, I wouldn't take that. I do agree. They've closed the gap for sure. Like, I don't think there's even though versus those teams we mentioned. I think the game would be respectable. I don't think it would be 41-10. I think it'd probably be like 31-14, 31-17.
Yeah, what they are is the SEC's Vanderbilt. They're capable of beating any team at the top. They're also capable of losing to any team at the bottom.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, there's a couple teams I would throw that out, but I agree with that. Like, I don't think UCLA has the capability of beating them.
I'm talking generalities.
Yeah. That's the thing too. It's funny because I do think the Big Ten and SEC are actually pretty similar at the top, like talent wise and everything. Middle tier, I would go SEC, and bottom tier, I'm going SEC because the bottom of the Big Ten is god awful. It's god awful. I mean, Northwestern, UCLA, and Rutgers, I think, are actually the 3 worst teams. I actually think Purdue's actually a solid football team this year.
Yeah, Rutgers has no defense.
No, those 3 teams are terrible. Like, Mississippi State, versus is kind of like the Purdue of the SEC this year. I actually think those teams are pretty similar. And your team's not that bad. Kentucky should have beat Ole Miss, honestly, if their coach wasn't a dumbass. So,
well, we can't line up properly on offense, so
Yeah.
We don't even know how to line up it feels like that's day one stuff is, hey, how do you line up properly and how do you get into the right formation? No, it takes for us 45 full seconds. Is that Mark in the chat, by the way, or is that you commenting saying he's got to side with Ralph Wolf on this one?
That's got to be Mark. That's Mark. That's not me.
Listen, maybe it's just me, and maybe it's because, I like watch SEC football more. I cannot see any justifiable way that Indiana, from any perspective, would be favored or consistently beat the top half of the SEC. Now, they might get them one out of every 3 or 4 tries or occasionally pick one of these teams off. Consistently be better than them. They could lose this week. If the Indiana played Mississippi State, I'm not sure who would be favored in that game, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. On a neutral field, I think Indiana probably would be favored, but it's not. It wouldn't be.
Now, I mean, Mississippi State destroyed a Southern Miss team who took Marshall's every player from Marshall and their head coach, and then they beat Arizona State, who everybody has winning the Big 12 or is way up there. So,
yeah, I mean, I would like to. If Mark's still there, I'd like to know what teams he thinks Indiana is better than in the SEC. Like, okay, if you're being super generous, I think the highest you could absolutely go with Indiana is 5. I think that's like the highest. I couldn't see anything higher than that.
Right. I'm assuming you're plucking LSU and Oklahoma away from that.
Yeah, that's who I'd pluck.
Right. Oklahoma's kind of weird because their quarterback got hurt. So I don't know how I'm going to really judge them going forward because of the Napier injury. I will say this. If Indiana's the third best, then that means Michigan's automatically. I think Michigan right now is a better team than Indiana just head to head. And I think Oklahoma dominated that game against Michigan in a way I haven't seen since the Texas game last year. So I don't know even if I would give Oklahoma that. Let's see what Mark says. There hasn't been enough football to guarantee there are 8 to 10 teams are better than India. Well, we're not saying guarantee. I'm not saying guaranteeing. I'm speculating based on everything I've currently seen, based on the results, that Indiana's not that good of a football team compared to most teams in the SEC, based on what the SEC's done out of a conference play, based on what Indiana is and what have they presently done. Indiana hasn't won anything, and they don't have the players to do it. I mean, they beat up on Illinois. It was such a lopsided game. I don't know if I should say, man, Indiana's the number 5 team overall in the country, or Illinois is just really bad. We're going to know more in 2 weeks. If they go and beat Oregon, then obviously Ralph Wolf is right, and they're a top 3 SEC team. That's just obviously true. But they're probably going to be, 14 to 17 point underdogs to Oregon?
Yeah, I would probably go anywhere from 14 to 9.5 is the lowest I think I could see that going. Yeah, somewhere between there.
Right. And from a power ratings perspective, how many teams are going to be that big of an underdog in the SEC to Oregon? Probably 6 or 7 of them at most.
Yeah, at most. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think LSU's anywhere near what they still rank 3rd. But yeah, they wouldn't be getting that many points for Oregon. They'd get 7 to 8 maybe max.
Right. And LSU did go on. I know Clemson's 1-3 and they're horrendous right now. But Clemson is a much higher caliber talent team than anything Indiana has beaten within the last few years. And they're just
I don't disagree with that. My problem is, like, at some point you do have to throw out talent rankings.
Oh, I understand, but we got to include, in the ugly part of doing this model is you have to include intent to schedule. When Indiana has shown that they're not playing anybody with the soul, and you got this team over here who played a bad team, but at least they intend to schedule, I'm always going to go with the team that's intent to schedule.
No, that's 100% true. I don't disagree with that. And that's the thing too. Like, people need to realize this. Like, some teams scale better versus good competition, and some teams don't. And I think until Indiana proves it to me, they blow out bad football, or from average to bad football teams. They blow them out. They kick the crap out of them. But then when they play good football teams, they are not able to compete for whatever reason. It's a scaling issue. Obviously, that has to do with talent somewhat. It also has to do with the scheme they run, because there's a lot of RPO stuff. And I think for really talented football teams, that's a lot easier to defend. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see what it looks like when they play Oregon, because that will tell me if that's a close football game, then we know, hey, that's a legit playoff caliber team this year.
Oh,
they're
absolutely
able to compete, probably win a playoff game.
Right, absolutely. But in my opinion, based on everything I've currently seen within the last few years, Indiana's probably not going to do that. I'm going to assume Indiana's going to continue to get blown out by these elite teams until they actually do it. That's the same reason I'm picking Oregon this week. I can't pick Penn State to win a game against a really good football team until they actually do it.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, though. there is a difference between Ohio State and Oregon. I know Oregon fans don't like to hear that, but if you look at the talent composite, they have a lot more talent than Oregon. They're the most talented team in the country, and that's like the one team, that in Michigan, when they were going, that beats Penn State. Everyone else, Penn State beats. So to me, this game kind of will tell me, will James Franklin, finally get over that big hump, win a football game like this at home versus that quality of competition? Or has Oregon taken that next jump to where they're one of those teams that I mentioned with David, like every year you can just count on them being a top 10 team from here on out?
Right. And to me, I'm worried about the Penn State getting off to a slow start twice this year against Villanova and FIU. At halftime, Drew Aller's stat line looked atrocious. Yeah. And if they do that against Oregon, I think there's a real chance this gets ugly and sideways. Like, the three scenarios I see happening is a Penn State close win, Oregon close win, or Oregon blowout. I don't see Penn State blowing out Oregon.
I don't see them blowing out Oregon because I think the way they're going to have to win this football game, they're not going to run for I don't think they are. I don't think they're going to run for 300 yards
right.
on Oregon. And that's the way they're going to, I think, win this football game, because I don't think Oregon's defense against the run is great. So I think if they're smart, they're going to run the ball 35 to 40 times.
Right. And that's going to conduce a low-scoring football game. Yeah. If Penn State wins this game, it's going to be like 24-21, 17-14. If it gets into the 30s, I don't see any way Penn State wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Aller would have to go crazy for that to happen. And I haven't seen that. But I also haven't seen it from Dante Moore. Like, that's the thing. I think a lot of people with Oregon are looking at Oklahoma State, and they showed you how bad of a team Oklahoma State is. Like, my God, that team just lost to Tulsa and fired their head coach that had been there for 20 plus years. That's not a good, like, that legitimately might be one of the 30 worst teams in the country, if not worse. So it's hard for me to put a lot of stock in that. And then they play Northwestern, who's just as bad. I know they have had a harder schedule than Penn State, but there isn't this giant chasm to me.
Right, but the difference is DTR and Oregon from start to finish have completely obliterated their competition, whereas Penn State hasn't done that yet. And for me, there's a potential factor with DTR that I just don't give Aller because he's been in the system for so long. Like, Aller reminds me of Alex Smith when he played for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to go 12-5. They're going to lose in the first or second round of the NFL playoffs every single year, and that's what you expect. Drew Aller's that exact same quarterback to me. He won't win you the big game, but he won't lose you any game you should either. And you'll just be content going 10-2 or 11-1 based on how the schedule is.
Yeah, I mean, if he loses this game, I'm going to be right there on board with you. I'm giving him one more shot because I never expected Penn State to beat Ohio State. Like, I just don't. But they should have beat, like, I still can't believe they lost that Notre Dame game. I thought they were the better team.
Oh, they were.
I don't know why James, I want to know this too. I would love to know for that one play at the end where he throws that interception, if James Franklin got on the headset and said anything to him. Did he say, hey, if it's not there, just dirt the football? Because if he didn't, that's an indictment on him as well. Like, you have to tell people in certain situations, hey, if this isn't there, just get rid of the ball. Lay down. Like, you go to overtime. So I would love to know what was said on that headset on that, but that was a horrific pass.
Right, and I don't understand the situation of them even trying to march down the field in a defensive game with that little time on the clock anyway. I mean, James Franklin, if there's a coaching call to determine this game, we know James Franklin will make the wrong one. Like, that's a set in stone factor for me. If it's close game late in the fourth quarter, James Franklin's going to go for 2 when he shouldn't, or he's going to use a timeout when he shouldn't. Something bad is going to happen to them with James Franklin that will cost them this game.
Well, it's kind of funny with the I thought that about Dan Lanning a couple years ago when they played Washington and he kept going for 2. It's like, why are you doing this? But he didn't really do anything stupid last year, so he may have actually learned from his mistakes, whereas James Franklin seems to not learn from his mistakes.
That's good. That's always a good I think Dan Lanning's one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the sport right now, and I think being able to change your behavior is a good indication. But I want to get your opinion on a take I had with Mark. So this week is the ticket punch week for me. So right now, I believe Ohio State's guaranteed in the playoffs. Like, barring a catastrophe, they're in. To me, the winner of Ole Miss, LSU, Oregon, Penn State, and if Georgia beats Alabama, all of those teams are also in the playoffs. And then Tulane's the G5 leader by a wide margin right now since they've beaten 2 Power 4 opponents. Is it kind of crazy that we're only 4 or 5 weeks into the season and we already know like half the playoff field barring something crazy happening?
Yeah, I would agree with that, other than maybe LSU, Ole Miss, because I think LSU's schedule is somewhat, kind of forget, but I think it's somewhat hard. I know Ole Miss is easy. So if they win that game, I probably agree with you. Unless they lose something they shouldn't, they should easily win that football game, or win the football games going forward. So I agree with you. Yeah, it's interesting because, yeah, that would be what, 5 or 6 teams that are guaranteed. You have 12 teams. Yeah, I mean, it is hard for me at this point to see Ohio State, if they win this football game. I don't know who they're going to. Let's say they lose to Michigan and they lose to Penn State. You're still in the playoffs. So,
Right.
yeah, I agree. I think they're in.
Even if they lose a third one, and I think multiple 9-3 teams are making it this year because of the strength of schedule rule change.
Yeah.
They beat Texas. Like, that's just such a massive advantage over anything these bubble teams are going to have. And this is why I think a 9-3 LSU team is going to make it. They play South Carolina at Vandy, Texas at Alabama, Arkansas, Western at Oklahoma. If they go 9-3 and they beat a Clemson team that even goes 6-6, 7-5, compare that to Notre Dame, teams like that, Michigan. LSU is going to get the nod because they win and beat their non-conference opponent, and they play in the toughest league in America. And these other teams just don't do that. So I'm giving them the benefit of the fact because I believe a 9-3 LSU and Ole Miss team would make the playoffs.
So I had a scenario, and I want to get your opinion on this. With going into the season, I had LSU, I believe, 9-3. I had Texas A&M 10-2, but I had LSU beating Texas A&M, but I still put Texas A&M in because I thought, one, barring a close game, and I think Texas A&M would probably have better. I think the Notre Dame win, among others, would be a better couple wins than LSU has had. Obviously, the Clemson win means absolutely nothing at this point.
Right.
Do you see any scenario where they would do that, or do you think they would just go with LSU even though they have a worse record, but they did beat them? But let's say it's a 27-24 game, because I think that's going to be a close game. It always is.
That's tough because what I do when predicting the playoffs is I didn't go by the analytics. I always went by Joe Klatt's question of path of least resistance. Basically, what is the committee going to do to get the least amount of scrutiny? And to me, the inclination on that is, well, they're obviously going to pick the team who won the game. But just looking at the schedule variancy between the two teams, like LSU has the harder schedule.
Yeah.
Like, that's without a doubt to me. But Texas, I would lean Texas A&M because they got a massive non-conference win right now against Notre Dame. Now, if Notre Dame finishes 7-5 or 8-4, I would lean LSU probably, but I think the non-conference schedule this year is going to be greatly emphasized. That's just my inclination based off everything we've received from early in the offseason for the playoff committee.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What if, let's say Notre Dame goes 9-3 and Clemson 6-6? Obviously, that's a much better win. And I believe Texas A&M is going to LSU, so that'd be a 3. Let's say they lost by 3. You're really going to penalize a team that has one more win than the other team because they lost a game on the road by 3 points. I would go with Texas A&M personally. I would too in that scenario.
But the backlash they would receive from that would be enormous. Yeah. And I don't know if the committee is willing to receive that backlash.
Yeah. You're right. They tend to go with the passive least. I mean, did they do that though for Florida State? I guess they did because they had an out with the injury. That would have been hilarious if that injury didn't happen, because I don't know what they would have done.
They would have picked, it would have been easy. They would have picked Washington, Michigan, Florida State, and Texas because Texas beat Bama. They would have had Texas 4, Bama 5, Georgia 6. And just say, well, Texas beat Bama, Bama beat Georgia. There you go.
Yeah, I think they would have done that, but my God, Nick Saban would have put up a hissy fit for that.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been so pissed.
I don't blame him, because what it would have been sent, thankfully that scenario wouldn't have happened. you would have seen plenty, in my opinion, you would have seen plenty of schools say, we're not playing a not challenging non-conference schedule until this changes. Because the only reason Alabama would have been left out of the playoffs is because they went to Texas. If they went to UTSA, they would have been in the playoffs and probably the number 1 overall seed because they won the SEC.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy. So I wanted to ask you, though, in terms of we got this Friday night game nobody's really talking about that I think is also very determinative of a playoff spot. This TCU Arizona State game. These are two of the best teams in the Big 12. In my opinion, 2 of the top 4 or 5 teams. Like, is it fair to say, even though it's the Big 12 and anything can happen, the winner of this game has a pretty large inside track of making the Big 12 title game?
I mean, if TCU wins, they should make the Big 12 championship game. I don't really see how they wouldn't at this point. Arizona State, I think, has a little bit more of a difficult schedule, but not by much. I mean, it's the Big 12. They all have kind of the same schedule. I believe in TCU more than I do Arizona State. Everyone was, picking them as a darling again in the Big 12. I just didn't see it because I think Cam Scatterboo is a lot better, and he's proving that in the NFL than a lot of people give him credit for. So Jordan Tyson's really good. Like, he might be, it's crazy. He might be the best wide receiver coming into the NFL this year. Obviously not in the country for college football because Jeremiah Smith exists, but just being draft pick wise, I think it's either going to be him or Carnell Tate taken. So they have talent. Obviously, Eric McAllister, what he just did, 3 touchdowns, could have been 5. Yeah, I agree. We have 2 good games. There's that game and there's another game happening tomorrow night. That's a good football game.
Florida State plays Virginia, and that's only a 6.5 point favorite for Florida State on ESPN. So I'm shocked it's that low.
I am too, which tells me I think that's going to be a weird and clunky football game that Virginia could win. But yeah, I agree. I think whoever wins this game is probably going to be in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, the Big 12 was picking a team out of hat who's going to make the playoff, and I picked Kansas State, and my God, was I wrong on that. So I don't know who's going to make it.
Yeah, Kansas State will play 1 possession game against the Kansas City Chiefs or Tarleton State. It is weird what they're doing out there. I haven't seen anything like this since Scott Frost was at Nebraska, where he just always loses the 1 possession games. You would think just by happenstance, you just run out there, you're playing an Army team who lost to Tarleton State, you just run the ball every play against Army, you would win that game 14-21 points. Avery Johnson's not that good of a quarterback. It's unexcusable what's happened with Kansas State. It could be worse, though. They could be Oklahoma State. So, it could always be worse.
Isn't that crazy? Like, 3 years ago when all this stuff happened, people were saying those were like the 2 teams that had next in the Big 12. And there's a good chance that Kleiman, if he has another bad season next year, won't be there. And Mike Gundy just got fired.
Yeah, it is crazy. But the lack of resource putting into the Big 12, because that's what it is. When you lose to these lower classification schools consistently, and you're getting blown out by 60 points, you're just not putting in the effort as much as the other teams.
No. Yeah, I didn't believe in Texas Tech with all the money they put in, but I think they're going to start dominating that conference. I don't think it's going to be close.
Right. They're honestly, credit to them being the smartest ones. They're probably got, if they put in the resources of just an average Big Ten and SEC program, they're probably just guaranteed to make the playoffs over the next 5 to 7 years because the gap in talent and resources between them and everyone else is massive.
Yeah, and then at that point, once you get in, if you can just capitalize, like if there's an off game by a team or two, you could find, I don't think they'd win a national championship, but you could be a TCU and make the national championship with the amount of resource they have. And right now, they just got crystal balled for the number 1 quarterback in 2027. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them. Anyway, Matthew, it's been good talking to you, and good luck against your Texas Longhorns. Do they play Florida this week?
They are off this week. They play Florida next week.
So you get 2 byes in a row. That's nice to hear.
Hey, their defense is good. Their offense is putrid, but their defense is good.
Well, their offense will give you about 5 extra possessions a game if you're a good team. So,
yeah, that's true. Lagway will definitely throw the football to the guys in white when we play him.
Anyway, have a good one.
Yeah, you too. What's up, Lucas?
What up, Matt?
How you doing?
I could be better. Freaking South Carolina could have their offense together, and the SEC could. But overall, it's a good day in SEC land.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that high on South Carolina going into the season just because I thought you guys lost a lot of talent on defense that it was going to be hard to replace. But Sellers has been, I mean, I had him ranked as the number 1 or number 2 quarterback in the SEC, so he's been a disappointment for me.
Matt, it's not all his fault. Look, I understand.
Believe it.
And look, I evaluated the film from last week. Dude, he rolled into 2 sacks. You know how they brought it, they loaded the box. I think they put 7 or the first, how they had the football at the 2-yard line. You have, I think, a backer coming off the blitz, and you have another one that comes through the A-gap, and he rolls right into it. He, instead of stepping up and throwing the freaking football away, he has plenty of time to do so. He keeps making these little mistakes, and part of that is because you know what happened with last week with that head injury. I know there was still a little bit of panic in him. So I think that obviously had to play a role. Number 2 is that I think Mike Shula is conforming him to be a pocket passer. That's been the number one thing that you have seen a lot from him, is that you've seen him stay in the pocket more than you would like for him to. You haven't seen the Lenoris of last year during that 6-game stretch. You saw design quarterback runs, rollouts where he was getting outside the pocket and moving with his offensive line. There's not a whole lot of confidence in him because of play calling and because of how bad this offensive line is. And the defensive side of the ball, you've been getting pushed around the last 3 games. And I'd have never thought I'd say that, because everybody was saying, oh, well, they lost a lot. I mean, they still produced pretty well in the portal. I thought they did well in that first game against Virginia Tech. I was like, all right, well, this defense really didn't take a step off. And then you saw what happened with South Carolina State starting to run the football on them, and I was kind of concerned then. And then Vandy comes into town and busts you right in the mouth. And then we saw what happened last week when you give up 280 yards rushing, which, by the way, Ahmad Hardy might have just risen into the top 3 in the Heisman rankings. By the way, shout out my boys out in Monroe. You know, we're Louisiana natives out here, Matt. So a little 3-hour drive up north to Monroe in the Sun Belt Conference. The best come from the Sun Belt. They go out and they show out at the P4 level.
He was, I mean, we played him, I think, 2 years ago when he was on Louisiana Monroe, and I think he was one of only 1 or 2 running backs that year to rush for 100 yards on us. He's really good. It's funny, too. There's another guy at Wyoming. I don't think he's there anymore. His name's Harrison Whaley. He's also really good. Those are like the 2 best running backs I remember of Texas playing the last 3 to 4 years.
Everybody's
I don't know why
sleeping on
Texas
Fluff Bothwell, too.
Who?
Fluff Bothwell at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He's a South Alabama guy. So, look, G6 gets a lot of underrated guys, and I think you've seen it help P4 at the level. You've also seen it hurt G6 at the next level, because you lose a lot of funding because of it, and you lose a lot of financial money that's going to be ringing in because of it as well.
No, 100%. Like, they can't keep up, and it's basically like a AAA, AA system for the SEC and Big Ten. So, yeah, I mean, South Carolina that's a weird thing, too. So it sounds to me like they're caught in the middle of whether they want to develop him fully for the NFL or actually win games in college. And that can happen sometimes where coaches don't really know what road to take, because you're going to get knocked either way. Because if you don't develop him for the NFL and he gets there, that's going to be a detriment on your program for future guys wanting to come in. And then if you do develop him for the NFL, but you're not winning games, obviously that's a detriment for it now. So that's kind of what it seems like to me, is what you're telling me.
Essentially so. I mean, you look at some of those programs. I mean, we could say Southern Miss is starting to head down that trend, because who knows what happens with Charlie Huff. Marshall became that last year. Once Charlie Huff left and left for Marshall, or left for Southern Miss, what, quarter of the roster left? You couldn't play in a bowl game, and now Marshall is sitting at the bottom in the CUSA right now. So that's a great example of it. By the way, a little off topic. I've told people about this in the preseason, Matt, and I got a lot of hate for it. I had Arch Manning outside my top 5 in my SEC quarterback rankings. And a lot of people were telling me, and I was talking to a lot of media corps around y'all's area. I talk with, you're familiar with Zay, the Texas crew?
You broke up there real quick. What was the name?
The Texas Sports Unfiltered crew.
Oh, yeah.
So you know about Zay Collier and them?
Yeah.
So we spoke a couple times, and he pretty much agreed with me because of the lack of tape on there. And I think he's pretty much proven why he isn't there yet. Why people are still having him as a first-round draft pick at quarterback just mind boggles me. He isn't anything. Nobody can see, flex on free Sam Houston State. It's Sam Houston. You need to beat him by 40. He's not developing at a high rate like people were expecting him to. That's why he needs another year in Sark's system. That's why he's not entering the draft this year.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think he was going to enter the draft regardless after this year. I think that's always been the plan. Like, Diabell talked about that actually when he got interviewed. He's like, how do you expect to play next year? He's like, no, Arch is going to be there next year. So I think that's always been the plan. Yeah, there's just been some weird, like the mechanics. I don't know what the hell happened compared to last year to this year. I will say the last couple games it's been better, but the Ohio State game was so weird. I don't know why his arm slot was different. I don't know why his feet were all messed up. Like, that's what made him a good prospect. That's why I liked him, is because he was mechanically sound. I don't think he's like super talented. I think he's a good athlete, but I don't think he has a giant arm or anything. I just think he was mechanically sound. And then all that went out the window this year, and he's terrible mechanically. He's gotten better, but still needs to get a little bit better with his foot or his feet and also his shoulders. He has a big issue with whatever reason. And a lot of guys do this now, and I hate it. It's the Patrick Mahomes effect, where you think because he can do it, I don't have to square my.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't have to square my shoulders to the target anymore.
Oh, it's so
I can
stupid.
sidearm, do all that stuff.
It's so stupid. I don't get why kids are being taught to do that now all of a sudden, because you're just going to screw up your shoulder even more. It makes no sense. Go through the freaking motion. When you get in your two-step drop, follow through. You get a quicker release when you release at the top instead of just trying to slide it. This ain't ball, bro. That's what a lot of people need. A lot of these young quarterbacks are trying to act like, is that you're trying to pair the two and translate it on the field. It's not going to work like that.
No, 100% agree.
But I mean, it's so frustrating to see the mechanics basically go backwards in this era of college football, because basically we see guys at the top doing it and think we can do the same thing. I mean, we can't. Your grandpa didn't do it. Your uncles didn't do it. Why? What made him think he could do it? God knows what.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's the thing too. There's not that many guys throughout the history of the NFL that have been able to do it. Like Mahomes, Josh Allen does it sometimes, but overall his mechanics are still really good. Lamar can do it sometimes, but overall his mechanics are pretty good. Really, the only one that doesn't on a consistent basis is Mahomes, and it's because that dude's a freak. So,
I mean, that's pretty much. Hey, by the way, Mark, appreciate the text. I do like the shout out to Charlie's shirt. Got it off a TikTok shop, by the way. But I do have a question for you on the defensive side of the ball. Why the hell is Anthony Hill Jr. not in first-round mock drafts? I haven't seen his name on top 30 prospects.
I do not know. I saw one with him, but I agree. Like, overall, it's not. I don't think CBS had him. I don't think Todd McShay had him. Trying to think of the other guys I've watched that don't have. Yeah, I don't know. I got it like I have a bet with someone actually from Florida State. He like covers the team, and he said he didn't think Anthony Hill was that good and wouldn't be a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. So I made a bet with him, like $100 to his favorite charity, basically. I think he's playing the wrong position in college, because I don't think he's going to be an inside linebacker in college or in the NFL. I think he's going to be an edge rusher. He has really good traits of an edge rusher. He's able to bend. He gets off the ball quickly. And I think Texas is going to start to use him down the stretch a little bit more there. But yeah, I agree. He's just good. Like, there's nothing I look at and I say, you know what, he does that bad. Like, he's good at everything. I don't think he's great at some things other than, keying on the run and getting downhill quickly. I think he is fantastic at that. I think he's also a really good pass rusher. But other than that, like, there's no weaknesses to his game. Like, I would be surprised if he's not a top 40 pick in the NFL draft. I think someone might even take a chance on him. You have to look like linebackers realistically, unless you're like a freak like a Fred Warner, they don't really get drafted very highly inside linebackers in the NFL anymore for whatever reason. So I don't know if he'll be a first-round pick, but I think he's a top 40 pick.
It's because the linebacker expectation has shifted since Micah Parsons has come in the league. You're expected to blitz more. You're expected to do a lot more in pass rush. That's why you see a lot of linebackers kind of playing what Harold Perkins is at that star position. You move him all over the field, whether it be him in the middle or you put him on the edge. You can flex him around a little bit, and that can make him a very reliable asset. I think I agree with you. I think you put him on the edge, put another 10, 15 pounds on him. I think he'd be a very, very good prospect at the end of it all. Don't be surprised if he ends up just shooting up the ladder when it comes to draft time and when it comes to combine time. He'll probably shoot to a top 15 pick again by the time we get to the end of the combine.
Yeah, it's funny because the guy I have seen, and finally he's getting some love. And I told like Garrison from the Ohio State channel when he was on, because he was questioning the Texas offensive line, and he's been partially right. Some of those, like especially the interior, has not been good. But I said Trevor Goosby's a first-round pick, and that dude's getting mocked as a first-round pick because that guy is a freak of an athlete. He's going to be a high pick. I don't know if he'll be first-round, but he's going to be a top 45, 50 pick if he wants to come out of after this year. He'll probably be a first-round pick if he stays another year. Like, he's a really good athlete.
Trevor's ridiculous, dude. I mean, he's just so flexible. I mean, you can put him anywhere. I think he'll probably be best off at interior. He moves a lot like how Caden Proctor moved, or not Proctor. Who am I thinking of? Mekhi Becton.
Yeah.
Off the Eagles. And you talk about a guy, it's either him or who's y'all's other interior guy? Cam Williams. Is he still
DJ Campbell?
DJ Campbell, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
DJ Campbell and Trevor Goosby are two guys that I see a lot of Mekhi Becton in.
Yeah, I think those are good comps. And I mean, that was funny when we did play Sam Houston. Like, he was out running. I forget who the running back was. I think it was Christian Clark down the sideline on that one. Like, he's a really good athlete.
What y'all got for y'all's running back? How deep is the running back room this year? Because I know y'all have got Trey Wisner still. Is CJ Baxter starting to get some more carries?
So unfortunately, he actually hurt himself the first play of, I believe,
again?
Yeah, he pulled his hamstring versus UTEP. The first play of the game, he pulled his hamstring. So he's out. I don't know if he'll be back. Trey Wisner will be back. Like, he'll play versus Florida. He's been out the past couple games, but there's been circulation that was kind of just like get him healthy, ready to go for SEC play. But yeah, it's deep. Like, I like Christian Clark. I like Jarrett Gibson. I'm probably the least high on out of the running back room, but I like Christian Clark and I like the freshman James Simon. I think James Simon's gonna be a really good player.
Dude, James Simon's a freaking beast. He can move vertically.
Yeah.
He can lower his shoulder down and run somebody over too. All right, I'm gonna go watch some film. I got a long night ahead of me. I got to work tomorrow morning. Hey, Sunday morning, we on Final Whistle on the SEC channel. Gonna break down all of what happened this weekend over the SEC. Because Saturday, I got to work freaking in Gala all the way up until 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not going to be home until 2 a.m. But, Matt, always a pleasure, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, guys, go give Lucas a follow on the SEC and South Carolina channel. He does really good work, so we appreciate him stopping by. Last call of the night. We might have to make it a quick one because I'm a dummy and didn't bring down my laptop charger. Michael, what's up?
All right, hey, I will make it short. I was going to list some teams and stuff like that who has more to lose this weekend. USC, Illinois, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Georgia, Auburn, or Alabama. Who has the most? Who could ill afford a loss this week? In your opinion, who could withstand a loss this week?
Did you say LSU? Did you throw them in there?
No.
Okay.
I said.
No, I think I got it. So I would say just based off, if Illinois loses a game, I know some of their fans had playoff expectations, then they're out of the playoffs. I don't see how Illinois runs the table from here on out if they lose to USC. So I think they have a lot to lose. I also think Alabama has a lot to lose because same thing. They lose this game, you already have 2 losses. Do we really think Alabama's going to go 8-0 to end this season, or what, 7-0? I don't. So I think those would be the 2 teams to me. If they lose this weekend, they have the most to lose. The most to gain, I think USC. I think if USC, I know there's this perception again that Illinois is a pretty good football team, like a top 25, top 30 team. I personally don't believe that, but a lot of the country does. If USC wins that game, then for a lot of people, they're going to be put on the map of they're a legit team. They can make the college football playoff. So that would be the team with the most to gain.
Sounds good. All right, hey Matt. Next time, don't forget your laptop. Let me guess.
Hey, no. You got like 10 more minutes if you want it, so you can ask me more questions.
Okay. Do you got a MacBook?
I do not. I have a Dell XP.
Good. Because if you have MacBooks, oh Lord, the world's coming to that. No, I was wondering stuff like that. No, what's the deal with Arch and stuff like that? Because I think Texas has a bye week this week, don't they?
Yes, we do. We have a bye week, then we play Florida.
I was going to say, man, I mean, is there a chance he can maybe work on some of it? Because some of his throws, like,
Yeah, so it's mostly mechanics. I don't know what's happened. Again, why I liked him is because he was mechanically sound, where he would square his shoulders to his target, step into throws, not overstride on throws. He's doing everything the opposite of that. He's not squaring his shoulders to targets. He's changing his arm angle way too much unnecessarily. He's overstriding, which means overstepping, and it leads to incomplete passes sailing high or too short. It has gotten better since the Ohio State game. Now, is it where it needs to be? Absolutely not. But do I think he can get it to where it needs to be? Like I said, if Arch Manning is a B- quarterback for Texas this year, Texas will be just fine. They have a good enough defense. They have good enough special teams. They will be fine. But can he play at that consistent level? I don't know.
Another thing I'm trying to figure out is, if I'm not mistaken, the time he did play last year, was he a dual threat?
Yeah, and he still has been. He's rushed for, I believe, 5 touchdowns so far this year.
I was just wondering, maybe if he can run more than throw, maybe that'll get him. So I think he just needs to settle down and stuff, because I figure everybody's putting all the next best thing and stuff like that, next best quarterback and stuff. I think if he just needs to settle the nerves.
That could definitely. So I agree with you. That was something I brought up the last couple of weeks. Like Steve Sarkisian brought up preseason, we don't major in the quarterback run game. But he's kind of changed his tune on that in his press conferences, where he's going to run the football more. And we saw that versus Sam Houston. You're going to see that more versus other teams. I think you're going to run him 8 to 12 times a game, like quarterback design runs. And he's a good athlete. Like, he moves well in space. He's a big guy. I'm not really afraid of him getting hurt. So I agree. I think Andy likes running. That gets him in a rhythm too. It makes him less nervous, calms the nerves a little bit. And I agree. I think a lot of this has to do with the guy was the biggest thing since I don't know when in college sports. Probably biggest thing since in college sports, we're just talking all of college sports, Zion Williamson. And then if we're talking college football, I don't even know when the last time a prospect came in and got all this hype. So I do think some of that got to him in a negative way.
All right, last thing before I let you go. If I'm not mistaken, does Texas play both Missouri and Vanderbilt?
We play Vanderbilt. We do not play Missouri.
How afraid are you guys of Vanderbilt?
We released a video on the Texas channel today, actually, and we talked about – I personally believe the 2 hardest games left on the schedule, and this is when I said, even with Napier coming back, if he's healthy for the Texas game, I think Georgia and Vanderbilt are the 2 toughest games left on Texas' schedule.
All right, sounds good. Hey, Matt, thanks, man. Have a great one.
You have a good night, Michael.
See ya.
Thank you guys for sticking with me. I know I'm not the regular host, but I really appreciate it. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And guys, remember, we are here every 10 p.m. Eastern time or post-game Monday through Saturday. So again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It's been an honor. Thank you, guys.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click Join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.